Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Hello drivers on the information superhighway. It's time to shift into cruise mode. Stop all that clicking and scrolling for a little while and settle in for another episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Now in today's episode, we're doing away with all that pay waving and we're bringing in a whole new way to shop. Get ready for some paying by interpretive dance. Now, one of the legends of high-end sports car motoring is about to turn the page and start singing the sound of silence. We'll have more information about that little cryptic clue just then. And we're going 20,000 leagues under the sea with a fully autonomous submersible. That'll hopefully unlock some of the long-standing mysteries of the deep. But all that in good time. First, let's welcome to the microphone our tech guru of the hour. How are you, Matthew Dickerson?
Well, I do look forward every week, James, to your intro, and I get a bit excited about what we're going to talk about just listening to your intro. I know what we're going to talk about, but I still go, oh, that sounds pretty cool. I love the way you introduce it.
Should be a good show today.
That's right. I can hardly wait to hear this show today. So a couple of things that I want to mention. One is that it's coming towards summer in Australia, and that usually means we get friendly with our animals. We've talked before about magpies, and I think you've got a view on magpies.
I have some very strong views about magpies. Absolutely.
And you don't think they've got the nicest personality ever known to mankind?
They're just mean.
They're mean, that's right.
Yeah.
So there's magpies around. We do see more kangaroos out. I mean, I know we see them all year round, but there's just a bit more activity. But, of course, the bane of my existence is snakes. And I normally expect to run over on my mountain bike one snake.
Sorry, can I just hold you up there? Hello to all our overseas listeners who are scared of all the animals in Australia. We're going to perpetuate some of those
But they're not myths either, because it is scary. And I do run a video camera on the front and back of my bike. It's a light and a tail light, but they've got a camera inside them in case I get hit by a car one day. I can say, hey, look, you silly person, you hit me. But it's also good for capturing snake videos. And, oh, my gosh.
Videos, that's plural, folks. That's many.
What I laugh at the most, this only happened yesterday. I was riding along a normal track I ride on every day, and then in the cracks and grooves and shadows.
Well, this is the thing. You ride on pavement. It looks like lots of cracks in. They're just cracks in the cement that you see up ahead.
That's right.
All of a sudden, one of those cracks moves.
That's right, and it did. And just hearing my voice. So, if you want to have a laugh at me, then just tune into one of my videos when I post it, because you just can't help yourself. It's just like
Yeah, but it's all post. It's after the act, right? So you've already hit the snake by the time you realise. Oh, that was a snake.
That's right. That was scary.
A nope rope, as some people call them.
Oh, they are. Anyway, I could still. I'm not going to post the whole video, but I reckon 20 seconds later I'm still going, thank goodness.
You've got to get rid of all that adrenaline.
Yeah, that's right. Didn't do me much good because I was already on top of it by the time I realised. But what I do want to talk about in terms of a technology perspective is a concept that took us a while to learn with our kids at university, but it's gotten even better now. What we used to do when our first few kids went to university was it would come the big break, the big holidays, and they were typically at college, and you had to move out of college. So we'd drive down, myself and my wife drive down in the car, and then we'd take all their college stuff and we'd load up the car, which takes a fair bit of time, a bit of mucking around and up and down, and you're trying to squeeze it all into a car as well as somehow fit your child in that's going to come home with you.
And then drive the 6 hours.
That's right. Stay in a motel somewhere because you're
people's faces pressed up against windows because they can't move.
That's right. And then you're safe in an accident though because you're so well packed around you. Right. And then come home and unload it and put it somewhere in the house, and then do the opposite at the end of the holiday break. And finally, it got to our fourth child, and we went, we've got a better idea. So we used AirTask to book someone to come and unload the room for our child, and then they took it to a storage facility, and then she went with them and they unloaded it there, and they left it there for a couple of months, and then we came back at the end and did it all again in reverse, so we didn't have to drive down, and she could just fly home. Much easier.
Yep.
Probably worked out similar in price by the time you drive down, and loss of productivity and motel rooms, all the rest of it.
All that.
But it just made so much sense. But now it's better. We've got a better solution, and this is relevant.
So we've stepped into the future now.
We have.
Yeah.
And so now there's a concept, and there are companies out there doing it, but this one that I stumbled across, or actually my daughter stumbled across, called Taxi Box. So forget about the idea of organising the AirTask and organising a storage facility. They advertise that we deliver, you or we pack, and we store. So they literally turn up with something that's like a container-sized device, and they put it outside your place that you want to unpack, college, apartment, whatever. they'll go in if you want them to and pack up all your stuff.
And they just, so you've just got this box out the front
That's
and it
right.
gets loaded up and you don't have to worry about anything else.
You can sit back in your chair and say, be careful of that, it's breakable, while they're loading it up. Or you can help load it up too, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then they take it away somewhere. You pay a monthly fee. And then at the other end, you say, I'm back now. Uni holidays are finished, so please bring my stuff back. And they do the reverse.
Well, I think that's probably very, very clever because the efficiency of packing would be much, much better. And not only that, the efficiency of storage as well. You've got these garages that have got the roller doors and you pull up and you empty your car into those and you drive away with that all safe and sound. Yep. But that's essentially on one level. There's probably multi-level car parks and whatnot that do this. But with this, it's just a box and they know where it's stacked. And it's in some sort of yard somewhere, I presume.
Yeah. Who knows where?
Who knows where?
That's right.
But and I'm getting visions of the last scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where they pack the Ark in a box and it's in the back of some warehouse. But, that sort of thing, you don't have to worry about it. You don't want to go and visit it.
No.
And you'll get it when you need it back later on.
That's right. What a great concept. Isn't this is all part of, they keep talking
so they
about
show up with some tractor with a forklift.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's part of the, whatever he keeps talking about, the gig economy. People are creating industries here. So people are worried about,
So clever.
Oh no, we don't need people doing certain things anymore. There are certain jobs that are no longer relevant. But then people create jobs like this, which sounds like just covering for people that are lazy, but it also is just convenience factor.
Yeah.
So I just love it.
As a uni student, I remember how tricky it was to get rid of your stuff at the when you're going home for the long holidays.
Yeah, that's right. It was a bit different
do with that?
when you were at uni. We didn't have much stuff, but my kids seem to accumulate stuff, and it seems to get harder and harder to pack it all into one car than it ever was before.
What do you do with a pool table?
That's right. It's hard to strap on top there. So I thought that was a great concept, and it's using modern technology. It's using the convenience that we have of modern technology, but people kind of just have created niches for themselves now.
An excellent initiative. Well done.
Yeah.
Taxi box, you say?
Taxi box. Go and look it up. Yeah,
Great idea.
This isn't cash for comment here. I just thought it was a great concept.
Oh, dear. All right, well, we better get going. Enough of this banter. We'll get into our first story. Now, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. There's a motto I think everyone can live by. It's certainly the root of many law enforcement strategies. Police presence on the street, visibility of law enforcement. It's perhaps the most powerful crime deterrent. So, Matt, South Korean police have taken this strategy with a dose of technological creativity, you might say.
So let's go back in our dark, distant past now and just see if I can get my memory right.
Back to the 90s?
No, I'm going to go back to the 70s. I'm going to go back to 77 when we saw, and I'm just trying to remember the words, it was, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope."
Oh, yes.
Does that sound about right?
That'll do.
Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Leia, that'll do. Yeah,
that's close enough there. So R2-D2, of course, had this wonderful hologram come out of Princess Leia, and she says, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope."
What the hell? How did they do that?
And so we all looked at that and went, oh, yeah, holograms, they'll be everywhere now.
Yeah.
1977 that was. And here we are in 2025. And they're not
I'm
quite
sure through
everywhere.
the 80s there were like hologram things that were happening too, but it never really, aside from being a bit of a novelty.
Yeah,
it was
exactly a bit of
nothing
novelty.
more than
And we haven't really nailed it. And it's pretty tricky because when you project something, you need to project it onto something.
Yeah,
so you can't just do it in midair as R2-D2 did in 1977. So holograms haven't really taken off. But this is a new concept where it's using holograms to help in policing. So in Seoul's Judong No. 3 Park in South Korea, there is a crime problem. And I didn't think there'd be many parts of South Korea that had a crime problem, but apparently this park is known for a crime problem.
It's all relative.
All relative. That maybe have one theft there a year, so it's a crime problem there. And so the local police have teamed up with a local company that creates holograms, and they've got a holographic police officer who pops out at night and says things like, "You're being watched. Make sure you do the right thing. I can have a real officer here if you don't behave," or standard statements along those lines. And it's reduced crime by 22%. So it's had an impact immediately.
Well, it's a deterrent that people see that, and it's the visual.
It's the visual. But anyone that thinks about it for more than a millisecond goes, I reckon I can run away from that because it's just staying right there.
Still, I reckon I can roll the dice on this one.
That's right. I reckon it's not going to be able to tase me. It's not going to be able to chase me down. I'm okay.
But there's been a lot of work done on crime prevention, and the seriousness of punishment. People have escalated punishment, tried doing that. So you've got really serious punishments, for smaller crimes. That's not the deterrent. The deterrent is knowing that you're going to get caught.
And that seems to be when they've talked to some of the experts about this. They said what it does is it just shows the perception that you're being watched. Now, there's CCTV everywhere, and I remember in the early days of CCTV, it used to be hide the cameras, and then someone went, well, you know what? Wouldn't it be smart if we just make it really obvious? We've got cameras everywhere, so now you tend to see those cameras, and they're a bit more obvious.
Well, law-abiding people would see those and be a bit worried about it.
Maybe.
Other people may not be so much, but having this other physical object that is large enough to not miss by any stretch at all, and have that human form too of a hologram.
Yeah.
Now, is it projected onto a screen or something? Or?
So that's where it's interesting because the first thing I thought of was, wow, they've got it so it can project into thin air, but not quite.
Okay.
So what they've got is a very thin, transparent acrylic layer that in the daytime there's kind of a little projector sitting above there. So it's a little physical structure and a very thin little sort of
not something someone's going to crash into.
No, and it's kind of set up against or off to the side and up a little bit higher that you don't walk into it as you're walking around, but you can't really see any of that. You just see a police officer. But I was hoping they might have been able to work out a way to project into thin air, which is pretty clever technology. They're up
it's only a matter of time. They'll work it out.
Give it time. That's right. So this whole perception of being watched seems to be altering people's behaviour. And I think it's a bit of the process in South Korea where we do see a bit of technology. So, for example, we've got facial recognition in schools now to make sure that kids and the right kids are turning up and teachers that are meant to be there are there and people that aren't meant to be there aren't there. You've got digital assistants in transport hubs. So when you go and catch a train, you've got someone you can go and talk to or a thing that you can talk to that's a digital assistant. So we know that South Korea does like their technology, but this is the first time they've used a police officer. In fact, the first time in the world we've had a holographic police officer. I don't know if it's the start of things, whether we'll see these holographic police officers popping up all over the place. There is a bit of a cost to them, though, $78,000 to set it up. Ooh. Presumably after that, pretty cheap to run. And I imagine the cost of a police officer to stand there and say you're being watched is more expensive than that in the long term. So probably a good long-term solution. But I find it fascinating that people are changing their behaviour. But it also makes sense. What you said makes sense, that you just think you're being watched. I better behave ourselves.
Yeah. It's the idea that I'm likely to get caught is much more of a deterrent than anything else.
The success so far means that it will start being rolled out in more places. But it's not even like Princess Leia. It's not actually moving. It's just staying there still. So surely they'll get better at it and have it start to move and wave its finger at you in an angry fashion.
Several around the park as well.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So,
just can't get away from them. The holograms are coming to get you.
That's right.
Now, robotic surgeries have been a thing for a while. An incredible thing, no less. But doctors operating on patients from cities miles away, that was a big headline about 24 years ago. Be that as it may, an Aussie robotic company has recently dropped a new world first in the field of robotic surgery. Matt, what has Remedy Robotics done that has turned heads in the medical world?
The first fully remote robotic surgery.
Start to finish.
Start to finish. You don't need your specialist in the same room. Your specialist can be wherever. Now, you're right. Robotics have been used. I had a friend of mine who had a prostate operation recently, and he talked about the fact this robot did the operation. We kind of trust that because we figure the robot's going to have steadier hands than a real surgeon. But we also like the fact that I can see the surgeon in the room where the operation is going to take effect.
Hopefully you're asleep while the operation.
Before the operation, I can see Jimmy there. He's a surgeon.
There's confidence.
That's right. I'm okay with that. And the robot, you're going to be guiding the robot. Fantastic. Thanks very much. I appreciate that you're looking after me. This is a bit different. So they focused, first of all, on stroke treatment, and they've had this process where you've got a surgeon sitting anywhere, and the actual robotic one remotely was performed in Toronto, and surgeons were nowhere to be seen, hundreds of kilometres away. And that's obviously, you're going to a major city to do the testing, but the whole idea is that you'll be able to do this in remote areas where you don't have access to those specialists. You have access to the equipment maybe, but not the specialists. So a local doctor will feed a catheter into the groin artery, and then stand back. And the remote surgeon takes over from there, steers that catheter to where it needs to go into the brain. It's a long way from the groin to the brain.
From the femoral artery to the brain.
But away it goes. And so one of the things that happened, it was actually, I'll give him a shout out, Dr. David Bell, a Perth-born cardiac surgeon. He was doing some work over in America, Stanford Robotics. He was working with some guy from Stanford Robotics. And there was a bit of work that was being done around autonomous vehicle algorithms. And then he started thinking about that, and then with this robotics expert, applied those same autonomous vehicle algorithms to a catheter in an artery to steer that all the way to the brain. Because the problem is latency. You don't want to know that you've gone the wrong direction half a second after you've gone the wrong direction. So that's a bit of a problem. And that's where it's using some of this autonomous algorithms to make sure it's going in the right direction.
Sorry, so this robotic surgery didn't even have a surgeon on the other end of the...
It has a remote surgeon.
Okay,
one of the ways they...
can't have a lag there.
That's right. One of the ways they counter the fact that you've got some... You're going to have latency. No matter where you go, you're in the room next door, you're going to have some latency. The further away you go, the more latency. Yeah. You're going to have some latency there. But you don't want to know about that after you've gone somewhere wrong or it's going in the wrong direction. So it's using autonomous algorithms to go along the artery in the right direction to get to where it's got to get to. I assume you take it pretty slow. You don't probably rush it there as fast as you can. But the other thing I thought of was, well, hold on, you have dropouts sometimes. What do you do then? And, of course, you don't just go to the local internet service provider and say, give me your cheapest prepaid and I'll just hook that up to my machine. So you've got...
We hope not.
We hope not. We've got a main connection, a redundant connection. That seems pretty obvious. You want to have a couple of connections. But also it just stops still when there's nothing happening at the other end. In other words, if you do lose connection, it doesn't go, oh, well, I was going down this path. I'll just keep heading on down there and
feels
everything will
like
be okay.
It's the right way to go.
That's right. At this stage, you do have a local doctor, not necessarily a specialist, just a local doctor there to do things like put the catheter in the artery. But presumably they could maybe take control and say, I'll just stop it there and talk to the person at the other end if you lost everything. But at this stage, the trials have been pretty impressive. And they've been doing real work on real people. So it's not, they've got past the animal testing, they're doing real tests on real people.
And this is an Aussie robotics company.
Correct, which I love. For the moment anyway, it'll probably be bought out by some overseas company once it looks like it's successful. But yeah, I do love the fact that it's Aussie. I always say Aussies are very innovative. We don't always develop it to its nth degree, but we are very innovative in what we come up with in the first place. So that's pretty exciting because in regional locations, we know it's a problem. In so many regional locations around the world, you just don't have access to the specialisation. And some video calls have meant that you can talk to a doctor, but that's not that great when you talk to a doctor and he says, oh, gee, James, on your face here, I can see a little skin cancer. We'll just knock it off. Oh, whoops, I'm not out there for 6 weeks. Getting someone to do that remotely is obviously a pretty impressive thing. So the robotics can handle it. We know they've got the strength. We know we've got the precision. We know they've got the ability to hold a knife and do it all nice and clean and steady. But you just want someone to control it, and they don't need to be in the same room anymore. So that's pretty exciting.
Amazing world, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And one by one, the big names topple. Car manufacturers that were once synonymous with the production of purring tigers are changing their stripes. Precision motor engineering has been focused for so long on converting chemical energy into raw speed and power to the sound of a roaring beast at the open throttle. These same engineers have succumbed to the fact that combustion engines have had 140 years of development now and probably gone as far as they can. So, Matt, Ferrari is going electric. Did you hear that, folks? Ferrari is going electric, and they're about to get very exciting once again.
And it's interesting. They've made a statement, a very pointed statement, to say that we are not going all electric, but also electric. So for the people that love those combustion engines...
You can still get that purring tiger, but I wonder for how long.
That's the very interesting question. And I do wonder, because the typical people I see buy Ferraris obviously have hearing problems, because when I see someone go past in a Ferrari, it seems to be they've got to make a lot of noise. So it's no good driving a Ferrari unless you can go down the street with your loud Ferrari.
But I don't reckon anything could take the corners around some of those hills in Italy, those mountain passes, like EV Ferrari.
Imagine an EV Ferrari, the handling of a Ferrari,
Yeah.
low down, low air resistance, and those batteries down on the base again.
Yeah,
Wow,
all
that would
that
handle
weight in the
fantastically.
bottom.
Oh,
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm excited by it. They've announced that they will have their debut all-electric model by mid-2026. So even the fact that they're
that close.
That's right. They're announcing it now and getting people revved up and excited about it. They're not even waiting until they've got a prototype.
Pardon the pun then. Yeah.
So they're getting there. And so this whole process around the world is happening. I think you're right. There's different companies doing it. But the crucial question for me is what will they do with the noise? Now, the first Jaguar EV I drove, one of the things I had to do when I got in was choose what sort of sound I wanted. Did I want a V12 sound, a V8 sound, a four-cylinder turbo sound, or a quiet electric sound? And part of the attraction for me is the quiet car, but obviously some people love the idea of that. So I tried different sounds on the Jaguar, and you chose the V8 sound, and they'd spent a lot of time recording a V8 car because it sounded like I was driving a throbbing V8. It didn't feel like a throbbing V8. It felt much better than that, but it sounded like one. So I don't know what Ferrari's going to do. And then
That'll be interesting.
do you want it nice and quiet inside the cabin, but still have the loud noise outside so you can impress people as you drive past?
Well, that's what it's about, isn't
That's
it?
right, yeah.
But yeah, I think there's also something in the experience of driving, a manual in particular. I don't know if Ferraris do automatics.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they probably would do.
They'd almost have to, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But here's my inexperience. This is how many Ferraris I've driven. But people enjoy changing gears and that thrill of all that. That's going to go out the window.
It is.
But
yeah.
I think the trouble with that will be forgotten once they've felt that pickup. And
So to give you an idea of the pickup, it does do 0 to 100 in 2.5 seconds. So if you miss the idea of changing gears, just feel about your kidneys in the back seat, then that
You're
might
going to be too hard thinking about
That's
thinking
right.
too hard about the bits of your body that you left behind.
And I always find it fascinating that car manufacturers always quote this because it seems a bit irrelevant. Top speed of 310. I'm not sure where I can drive my Ferrari in Australia at 310, except if I go to a racetrack.
Yeah.
I don't know too many. Well, in the Northern Territory, I suppose, but even in the Northern Territory where it's unlimited, I think they take a dim view of 310 kilometres an hour. I think they take a dim view once you get up around 140.
Also, I don't know if the roads are rated for cars, so you'd still be bouncing around the track a little bit.
You would be, that's right. What they have done, which I love, is they've put a decent battery in it, 122 kilowatt hour. Most EVs seem to have 50, 70, maybe 100 kilowatt hours. 122 means you're going to get good range even at those high speeds. So they rate a 530 kilometre range. I'm pretty confident if you drove it sensibly, but why would you buy a Ferrari to drive it sensibly? But if you drove it sensibly, I think you'd get much more than 530 kilometre range because a Ferrari is going to have very low coefficient of friction. It's going to have very low drag.
Cuts through the air like an arrow.
Yeah, and we know that's one of the big impediments to range in an EV is that air resistance. So if you drove it at sensible speeds, I think you'd get really good range with that size battery. The other thing that I think is important, and this is going to be the real battleground, is the EV components they're using in this are being developed in-house. So your motors, your inverters, the battery systems are all being done in-house. I think there are some car manufacturers who just go, right, who makes motors? We'll go and buy those.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of development is going to be stagnated, I think, a little bit, whereas each individual manufacturer doing their own development for their own equipment, that's going to help development.
But that makes sense from Ferrari. They've always done that sort of thing. We like things the way we like them, and so we'll make them the way we like them.
So the only minor problem is we've got a bit under a year. We've just got to start putting those pennies in the bank because the price tag is about $800,000 Aussie.
Oh,
so it's got a few,
Everyone's going to get one.
a few zeros on it. So I just start putting my spare loose change in a little bucket and have that soon.
Save up those pennies.
Yeah, that's right. But again, I just think it's fantastic, and just for someone like Ferrari to say this is our future.
Well, yeah, it's a confession, isn't it?
It is.
They realise that the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
And that it's time for EV to just take its place. I've got to confess, when tapping to pay became a thing, I personally was highly sceptical. I was adamant that I would always insert my card and punch my PIN code the way that the God of money, or had always intended it to be. But after the first time of pay waiving, I think it was the COVID era, while I was initially quite disgruntled at being forced to do this unnatural thing of pay wave, it was actually much faster and heaps more convenient. But Matt, I don't know how I'll go with this newfangled gesture paying.
It's actually interesting. The whole concept of NFC, near field communications, was pioneered by good old Nokia. So
Okay.
Nokia were ahead of their time. It was about 20 years ago that Nokia developed NFC. They just needed COVID to come along back then, and maybe we'd all be
It's
using...
all a question of timing, isn't
That's
it?
right.
Yeah?
We'd all be using Nokia phones. Of course, by the time the COVID-19 started to hit us, Nokia was well and truly gone by then, but the NFC concept remained. And at the moment, most people vaguely understand it. You've got a chip inside your phone, your credit card, your watch, whatever it might be, and when you put that in a magnetic field, certain frequencies are generated and sent back to the reader. So we kind of get that. Most people kind of understand what happens and how that works. And that identifies you and takes money out of your account, not someone else's account. Everything's fine. But if we are going to go contactless, and we're thinking about the germ aspect here, so we're really trying to make sure we don't have another outbreak of something like COVID, or if something else comes along like that, we can stay as contactless as possible. We don't want to have to press buttons for our PIN. We don't want to have to press buttons for tip or no tip. We want to be truly contactless. And so some clever researchers from the University of British Columbia have actually come up with a system where you can have 9 different gestures with your phone. So, for example,
So
left
this
to
is
right.
phone dancing.
Phone dancing, that's right, exactly right. So left to right, forward and back, up and down, just different types of movements. They've worked out 9 different versions of those, and they can then be picked up, and this is where I love it, they can be picked up by the magnetic field that's put out by the actual reader itself and detect that you've got some sort of chip moving in a certain way through that electromagnetic field, and therefore the signal that comes back is different.
Wow.
And I went, no, that can't be right. It just gets a little resonating signal and that comes back. How can it pick up when you've got electromagnetic signals travelling effectively with the speed of light? How can it pick up a little movement of us moving it through there at a couple of kilometres an hour, effectively moving our hand? But
This sounds like Lenz's law to me. So Year 12 physics students, I hope you're listening up.
Yeah, I do wonder. Well, actually, that's fascinating.
So we're probably inducing a current in there at some stage in a small circuit. And the direction of the current and the strength of that current would be dependent on how that phone's moved.
So I do wonder whether it was that, because my basic understanding of a chip, for example, is that it generates power by the frequency or the electromagnetic frequency that comes in, and by that it then sends a signal back based on that frequency. So it actually does generate some power. So it has to use presumably Lenz's law for that.
Yes.
But then to move it through there differently to generate a different signal coming back.
Yeah, so you are going to be getting some sort of, if you've got any electric and magnetic fields, because they're so regularly and some would argue inextricably linked, that you are going to get an effect wherever you've got a moving magnetic field.
But to have it sensitive enough that it can just detect our little
We
movement.
are living in the future, man.
We are living in the future, that's right. So I looked at this story and I went, that is unbelievable that they can pick up differences. So they did some testing with it. They grabbed 10 volunteers and they said, here are the 9 gestures. Now go in, and when you are asked to do one of the gestures, do it. And at this stage, just with the early readers they had, they were getting them accurate 92% of the time, which might be bad if you go, I don't want to give a tip because the service was terrible, and you move it one way. No, I just gave a tip. Oh, no. But presumably they would refine it down and get to that point.
I presume if you move it one way, you pay, and if you move it the other way, it pays you?
Maybe if we can do that one, that'd be good.
Okay, good.
I think they need 10 gestures, though, because if you want to put your PIN in, well, you've got 10 different numbers to choose from, 10 different digits to choose from, so you need 10 different gestures that you actually know. But this is really, you are saying moving into the future or living in the future, this is really about being able to do things that maybe we don't even know we want to do, don't know we need to do, but at some point in time, we'll want that ability to do that.
So just be careful about how you wave your phone, because you might be tipping about...
That's right. I just tipped you everything in my account.
So how do you know where to shop online these days? Do you tend to lean on the known brands or online stores that are trusted, that have stood the test of time? Well, that's all well and good, but how does a new business get started and earn trust? What would lure you to online to a new unknown distributor? Good reviews, images of people with testimonies of their positive personal experiences, perhaps? Matt, that was all well and good until AI rolled in with its caravan of snake oil.
Oh, unbelievable. So let me tell you a story about a lovely little jewellery store in Birmingham called C'est La Vie, run by Eileen and Patrick. They've been doing this for 29 years. Some photos of Eileen and Patrick over the years. Patrick's an expert jewellery maker, He's doing some wonderful work on the jewellery in his store. And unfortunately, Eileen just posted to say Patrick has passed away. We're both getting quite old, and Patrick's died now. So I'm going to sell up everything in my store. I'm going to give 80% off. I just want to get rid of it all and close the store down. We've had a good life, and I need to go now that Patrick's not here beside me. A wonderful, heart-wrenching story, wonderful photos of Patrick and Eileen over the years, and all completely made up. Absolutely fake.
Goodness
Patrick
me.
and Eileen don't exist. Say La Vie doesn't exist. There is no jewellery store in Birmingham offering 80% off, but it gets more sinister than that. So what you do is you say, well, 80% off, I'm happy to buy something from that jewellery store, and it's a lovely backstory there. So you pay your money and you receive your shipment. So everything seems okay. You open up your box that you receive, and there's not jewellery in there. There might be a lump of resin. There might be a packet of dirt. There is something you've received.
Someone has gone to the trouble of being nasty towards you in like a double-handed way. We're taking your money and we're laughing at you in your face.
Now, the reason they do that is because then when you complain to say to your credit card company to say, oh, I didn't receive my goods, this is a scam, they go back to the company and say, this person hasn't received their goods. And they go, no, they have. Here's the shipping information. Here's where they've signed for the goods, so they've received the goods. So that person's trying to scam you, Mr. Credit Card Company. And they go, oh, well, we better check that out now.
Wow.
So
People are filthy, aren't they?
they are. So this is the problem we've got. So we are having lots of these sites popping up now. I saw another one, Mabel and Daisy, was a wonderful Bristol mother-daughter clothing label, operated from Hong Kong. Well, I'm not sure why, but that was part of the whole backstory there. And, of course, the reviews were wonderful. You read all the reviews on there, and they just were glowing in their praise of this wonderful Mabel and Daisy. This is just brilliant. And, of course, all made up. So there are so many stories like that. How do you spot these? How do you pick up that these are wrong? Because the first thing, as you said, you might look at the website, you might look at photos, you might look at reviews, all the sensible things that sensible people that are aware of scams would do. You go and do all that, and it ticks all the boxes. Yep, I trust dealing with this company now, and away you go. So what do you do?
Me.
What sort of things do you do? So I still like the good old-fashioned phone call. I mean, it seems a bit old-fashioned, but when a company won't take a phone call from me, I'm just a little bit suspicious. I a little bit frustrated because sometimes you might want to phone them, but it's one way for me to go, I think they're a bit more legitimate. But having said that, with deep fake voices now, it could be a phone call I have with a scammer.
Or with AI.
That's right. That's one. If you really, if I was going to spend $20 on a site, I probably wouldn't be so focused. But if I was going to spend a bit of money on a site, I might say, could you please just send me a photo of that thing I'm going to buy with a copy of today's newspaper? Or something that you can only get now and that you couldn't just generate a fake copy of, that type of thing. So you might take a few more steps, but it's so much effort now. Are we going to go back to bricks and mortar soon? Are we going to stop shopping online because we've been stung so many times?
And just walk down the main street of town.
That's right, and start ordering your things from there. So it's a problem, but just you've got to be so mindful of that. Keep your eye out for so many little red flags there. And I don't know there's an easy solution I can give people as to what they look out for, but you just have to be aware.
Well, when they're giving you some story that is really pulls on the heartstrings there, and then you think, oh, well, there's a bargain here. She's selling up everything for 80%, and then you get the parcel in the mail.
Yep, everything seems legit until it isn't.
Oh, my goodness. So many of us know that social networking now operates in terms of short video reels. As meaningless and inane as you'd expect if you left your kids in charge of generating all video content, but the mode for communication is now, in short, video reels. And everyone can now make their own 10-second Spielberg masterpiece now that OpenAI's Sora app has taken charge. Matt, being creative used to take at least a little bit of effort.
A little bit of effort. And I saw some people recently, canola crops at the moment are looking beautiful in their glowing yellow, and so they do make a magnificent backdrop.
Very striking.
I was out riding my bike, not running over snakes, just riding my bike one day recently, and I saw some people there with their selfie sticks, with their cameras, standing in front of this beautiful canola crop in the background, filming something, and I assumed they were influencers or someone doing some little clips of themselves, but what an effort. They'd drive out to a canola crop and stand there out in the sun and do all that. That's all. So yesterday, James, if you go and use Sora now, you can create an AI-generated video from text prompts. So you could say, please give a 10-second video of me in front of a canola crop saying, look at this beautiful canola crop behind me. And it would create a video that looks pretty good, but it gets worse or better, whichever way you look at it. I can upload a photo of me. I can upload a video of me. I can upload image of me and say, please put that into the video. But then I've got to voice it. Oh, no, hold on. Upload my voice. And now I can say to Sora, create a video with me in it, with my face, my likeness, and my voice, and I want to be sitting in front of a canola crop, and what the heck, put a few lovely magpies flying around coming down to swoop me at the same time, and there's my 10-second video that I can post to show what I'm up to. So you can be creative, which is great, but you just have to wonder what's real anymore.
No, that's exactly right. And so when everyone's making these, CGI quality videos now, it used to be the realm of the best Hollywood filmmakers. And everyone can do it.
You can create fake memories as well.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
You can start to say...
You can gaslight your siblings at the Christmas table. Yeah? Right. Remember that photo that we got with Michael Jackson?
Use that video. Yeah, forget the photo.
Michael Jackson? No. He came to our hometown.
You can gaslight yourself. You can look at that video in a year's time and go, I don't remember that.
Oh, this is not going to do much for me when I end up getting dementia or something like that.
No, that's right. You had a wonderful life, James. Here, we'll give you your highlights in 10-second video clips at a time. But it's just fascinating how far we've come with the technology and just the raw processing power to do all this. It's sitting in some servers somewhere. It's using a lot of processing power for, maybe inane purposes. It's really not helping society as a whole, but people are using it and posting these videos. So it's quite fascinating to me. I find the technology behind it's incredible, but how's it going to be used? Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be used in a bad way somewhere.
Well, yeah, you used to have to work hard to be creative, and now anyone can do whatever they want. You just have to think it.
Yeah, that's right.
Cancer is the metaphorical devil inside, and treatments for cancer often come with demons of their own. Invasive surgeries and toxic medicines have been the best defences in previous decades, but they've each brought a toll of their own. In more recent times, the hunt has been on for minimally invasive and non-toxic defences. And Matt, an unlikely tool in the form of ultrasound waves, may be an unlikely hero in this defence against cancer.
For our listeners, just this weekend at a friendly barbecue, just drop histotripsy. Just a nice little term that rolls off the tongue, and people go, wow, you sound intelligent. Tell me about histotripsy.
Sounds like something that a rapper might do.
Maybe put that into a song and get something to rhyme with histotripsy. There's your challenge. So histotripsy is the idea of breaking down cancer cells non-invasively with ultrasound by essentially breaking them down. It actually creates microscopic bubbles within the tumour, and then it actually breaks down the tumour itself.
Wow.
And then the natural immune system in our body says, oh, what are these foreign objects here? Let's get rid of those. And it actually disposes of them via natural processes. So no knife, no invasion, no chemotherapy, and targeted. That's the big problem with chemotherapy. Everyone talks about chemo can be effective on cancer cells, but it's also effective on every cell in our body. It affects our whole body. We have used ultrasound before, but we've typically used ultrasound with heat more so. You're cooking a tumour, if you like. So there's a process called high intensity focused ultrasound, or HIFU, and that uses heat to cook tumours, which is not great because it does cook some of the cells around there as well. It's pretty hard to keep that heat contained to just the tumour. But this really focuses on just the tumour itself. And it was discovered by accident. There was a researcher at the University of Michigan who was working on some ultrasound on pigs' hearts and then found that, that's actually breaking down those cells. Oh, hold on. Maybe I could use that in a different way. And so breaking down cancer cells. So
accidental science. Fantastic.
How many times? Everyone throws, the first thought is penicillin, of course, is the first one, but there's lots of accidental science. Velcro is one of my favourite accidental bits of science.
Radioactivity, thank you, Honorary Becquerel.
That's exactly right. So we've got that in terms of this being an accident, but the US FDA has now approved this for treating live tumours. So it doesn't mean it's perfect, doesn't mean it's always going to work, but usually once it gets approval by the US FDA, there's some testing and some tick of a basic approval that's occurred before it gets to that particular point in time. So we haven't got the magical cure. We haven't got the ability to just say cancer is now gone. We are getting better at it. One of the big issues with this is that bone and gas-filled organs, so like our lungs, for example, do effectively block ultrasound. So if you're trying to get to an ultrasound in this method, to some parts of the body, you won't get there.
Yeah.
And I think that seems to be the solution. Everyone says, oh, let's get a cure for cancer. Well, we've got treatments for cancer. We've got lots of treatments for cancer.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that there's not just one treatment for one cancer, because let's face it, there are lots of different cancers.
Yeah.
So we do have multiple treatments, and this is just one that will treat things like liver tumours, kidney, pancreatic tumours, but maybe not every tumour. But it's just another tool that we'll have in our arsenal.
Bingo.
To be able to treat different
And
cancers.
this non-invasive and non-toxic. This is,
Yeah,
it
so
sounds like excellent.
They talked about some people that are having this treatment on their liver tumours already, about 3 hours maximum for a session, and you just go home. So you go in, you're treated for they say 1 to 3 hours, but typically up to 3 hours, and then you go home, and then, let's say, your body just breaks that down, and then you might come back for another treatment and keep working on that. So what a great concept.
For sure.
It's getting to that point where maybe cancer one day won't be the big scary thing it used to be.
Captain Nemo, eat your heart out. This next story could have been dreamed up by H.G. Wells about 150 years ago. But in 2025, the age of exploration is back again with an unmanned, fully autonomous underwater ocean exploring vessel. It used to be that we knew more about the surface of the moon than we knew about the ocean floor. That may all change very soon, Matt.
I don't fully understand how the propulsion on this works. So let's go through it a little bit.
By magic.
It does. That's it. Okay. Finished. I know how it works now. So it's a little submarine, 2.57 metres long, 171 kilograms, and it travels along at about 1.5 to 2 kilometres an hour. So not very fast. It's going to take about 5 years to cover 73,000 kilometres around the ocean, so circumnavigate the world.
Yeah,
the
it's got the capacity to just keep going non-stop.
Yeah, and I went, well, how can that do that? That's only fairly small. When you look at something 2.5 metres long, it's not that big. So then I started thinking, is it some sort of nuclear-powered device you've got there? We've got nuclear-powered submarines. I'm thinking, how's it going to fit in that size? What fuel could you possibly have on there? So see if you can get your head wrapped around this, because I haven't. It's not powered by propellers, but it's got a buoyancy engine. It's got a gas-filled piston system that adjusts its density to sink or rise, so it kind of goes along in a sawtooth trajectory. And it's using that gas-filled piston to do that. And surely, at some point, within 5 years, presumably, you've got to run out of gas in the gas-filled piston. So it's using its natural buoyancy to go up and down. I get that bit, but then you've got to be releasing gas as you go.
Could it be going to the surface, taking a gulp of air, and then going back down again, perhaps?
It's going to need some power to do that.
So what? I don't know. So is it a case of it creates a vacuum to reduce its density, and then to build its density, it just reduces the volume of that vacuum space to make it more dense, and so it sinks. And so with a variety of wings and whatnot, it's going to be gliding through that water, just rising and sinking, but travelling laterally as well. Yeah. I don't know.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
It does surface about every 12 hours, but it doesn't do that, well, as far as I can work out, to take a gulp of air. It surfaces to be able to transmit its information to satellite. So it's obviously got some sort of battery on there as well, because they estimate that about halfway through its 5-year journey, they will need to stop and put a new battery in. So it's going to run out of battery power.
Okay.
But it's not using much battery power because it's just transmitting every 12 hours, so not much there, recording its data obviously as it goes. But it didn't say anything in 2.5 years' time about refilling its gas-filled piston. So I'm intrigued by this one. I've got to do more research on it because I just don't understand how it can go for that long. If someone said to me, I've discovered perpetual motion, I can keep this thing going for 5 years, I'd say, you're dreaming. How can you make something keep going on for 5 years? That seems like it's too long a time frame. But what does it do? It measures the depth that it's at any given point in time, the temperature, the salinity, and it's got a fish tracker to detect tagged marine species encountered during its voyage. So it's tracking a whole range of parameters to really get a good 3D picture of the ocean around the Earth. And obviously, to me, the thing that would be obvious is you do that now and you then maybe do this as an ongoing project, you do it again and see how the Earth's changing, the water in the Earth's changing, how salinity is changing, temperature's changing, all sorts of those constants, or not constants, those variables, you'd be measuring to just see what's happening to the ocean around the world.
Yeah, and it's such an amazingly, well, I was going to say amazingly large. That's a silly way of referring to it. But yeah, we've got so much to explore in the ocean.
Yeah.
We might be able to find the MH370 even.
Maybe. It only goes down to about 1,000 metres, so I reckon MH370 is a bit deeper.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not. Maybe we're looking in the wrong place for MH370. Maybe it stumbles across MH370. It didn't mention that it was looking for any planes on the bottom of the ocean, but... Yeah,
so it's not going to do the Bermuda Triangle and... check out and find that was actually a myth anyway.
Yeah, that's right. So not sure it's focused on.
But anyway, super interesting, and I wonder where this technology will take us.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a bit slow, but it's quite fascinating.
It just keeps going and going, like the Energizer bunny. Has it ever occurred to you just how much data there must be on aging floppy disks? Anyone older than, I guess 40 has probably thrown out boxes and boxes of old floppy disks without a second thought. But for responsible groups, libraries and archivists and the like, well, they have a job to keep all that stuff, and some of it's still quite valuable. But the clock is ticking, and unlike papyrus scrolls, the medium of the floppy disk was not built to last more than about 50 years or so, let alone millennia. Matt, just what sort of a problem is this, aging floppy disks?
It's an interesting one, and I've got a specific story that talks about how interesting it is, but a floppy disk has an iron oxide coating, and that does lose magnetism over time. Of course, it uses magnetism to record that data on there. It's basically recording a yes or a no, or a 1 or a 0, on or an off, if you like, to record that data on there. So you might have a floppy disk that's got really important information on it. You stick it away somewhere and you go to pull it out sometime in the future, 10, 20 years later, and of course you try and read it and there's nothing there. You've got to find something to read it, of course, first. But we do know that libraries are quite good at archiving information, archiving material. That might be things from thousands of years ago. It might be information from the Second World War. I remember going through the Hiroshima Museum in Japan and looking at some of the letters that were written around the Second World War. So that type of archive material is fascinating. But recently, there's been the Cambridge University Library has received a delivery of 113 boxes from the theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking.
Oh.
And in those boxes is a bunch of stuff, written papers, that type of thing, but also floppy disks that's got a whole range of his papers, photos, information, because he was quite an early adopter of the computer and thought, wow, this is fantastic. I'll use this because we know he was limited in his mobility, and he will use this with voice recognition to record a lot of his thoughts and a lot of his ideas. So the first problem they've got at the library is to go, well, we need to find some devices that can read these floppy disks for a start.
Who owns an Apple IIe?
That's right. Now, there are a variety of ones as well. So you will remember the original floppy disks were 8-inch.
Yeah.
Not many people saw those on personal computers.
No.
It was to the 5 1/4 inch where most of us saw floppy disks originally, and they could hold the massive 1.2 megabytes of data on a floppy disk. And they were aptly named. They were floppy. They were flexible.
Yeah.
And I remember at school when we first got some of those, you'd cut the little edge out, the little square out on the side, so you could turn it upside down and stick it in again. That was
both sides.
Yeah, that's right. That was before they were double-sided, so you could use both sides.
Yeah.
But they eventually got to the stage where they read double-sided automatically. But I thought that was pretty clever because I got double the storage out of a floppy disk because I could turn it over upside down and read the other side of it. But then, of course, the massive increase in capacity came along. We went from 5 1/4 inch to 3.5 inch, went from 1.2 megs to 1.44 megabytes of data. It didn't seem like a lot, did it, to go to all that trouble of a whole new medium.
And it was smaller and it looked fancier.
And it wasn't floppy anymore. That confused people. Why do I call this a floppy disk? It's a bit hard, not as hard as a hard disk, but harder than a floppy disk. Where does it sit in the floppy to hard disk ratings? So he's got, or Stephen Hawking had, no longer with us, of course, a bunch of floppy disks with information. So the first thing they've done at the library is start to get some information together to pull data off there. But then it's like putting together ancient material because he used a word processor known as Diamond Word Processor. Well, I don't see too many people using Diamond anymore. So you've got to then basically work out how you can reverse engineer the information that's stored on there into something that's readable. I don't remember, and I haven't looked recently, but I will now, when you go into, say, Microsoft Word and look at the various files it can read, I don't remember seeing Diamond in there. It might have something like WordPerfect, which was a popular program many years ago, but I don't remember seeing Diamond. So you get the data off there, you go, fantastic. There's a file, I can read that file, but it's in a format that I can't understand. So obviously the job of this library is to get this information, get it in some sort of readable format, and then store it somewhere longer term, because I think people in the future would be fascinated to hear and see what Stephen Hawking actually had to say.
Let's face it, out of those 113 boxes, they could probably put it on a little thumb drive.
Yeah, now they could,
flash
that's right. They even found things like on one of the discs, there was a little game. And so you're working away to recover this data. Oh, I wonder what this stuff is. I wonder what he thought about this particular piece. And they found it was just a game. But that still gives an idea into just maybe the lighter side of Stephen Hawking, not all about the serious side of Stephen Hawking. Yeah. But you'd be a bit annoyed, wouldn't you, that you're thinking, this might be a really important thing that maybe hadn't been fully discovered, and Stephen had some thoughts on this, and it's a game. So, but all these old skills are not necessarily lost. If you had skills with Diamond word processor, or maybe floppy disks and how to use those floppy disks, how to cut little bits in them and flip them over, those skills might still be useful for a little while yet. To give you an idea, about 5 billion floppy disks were produced globally. Now, I'm not sure if that's 5 billion, 3.5 and 5.25 inch combined, but the data I got said 5 billion floppy disks produced locally. And now, probably I reckon 90% of those wouldn't be readable just with the passing of time, or the data that's stored on there that's not actually readable. So, it's quite fascinating.
Well, maybe we send out a big, a call out to our listeners. If you've got an Apple IIe or Micro B computer that might be useful, if you can just contact the Royal Society in England.
That's right. And it's all Apple's fault, because they were the first ones to start producing computers without a floppy disk built into the computer. They started producing them with CDs only. And that was a big step when the IBM PCs were still coming out with a floppy disk port, and Apple said, that's so yesterday. Then that started the decline of people using floppy disks.
Well, that's all we have for you today, folks. We've got to pack up this picnic before the ants arrive. Thanks for another cracking tech talk, mate.
Look, my pleasure. And I am fascinated by this glowing hologram still. I'm going to go look into that more and see when we're going to have holograms that can just exist in the middle. I just like the idea of a hologram in the kitchen, of me saying to the kids, clean up your room, wave my finger at them while I'm out enjoying myself somewhere else. I want the hologram in the home. I want the holograms moving around the home, just being there to remind the kids who's in charge.
Well, thank you all for tuning in once again to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk is 100% grain-fed with no added hormones, mercury binding agents or acetaminophen. I think I said that right. Just check that with Donald Trump. I'm James Eddy, and I've been your host today. I'm looking forward to doing it all again next week. We hope that you'll join us again for another episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Until then, all the best, and take care, and we'll see you when we see you.